And good afternoon and Happy New Year to you all. I sincerely thank you for your time and apologize for the delay. But your presence here is important to us and this opportunity to address you. So this event marks the first press conference by the Minister for Finance in the new year. And I pray that the year will bring us happiness, peace, and prosperity that we all deserve across the country. The prayer sometimes seems improbable in these times of our Fitch downgrade, the devastating exit of the Black Stars from the ongoing Afghan Games, the impasse in Parliament about the e-levy, and the despondent citizens concerned about the economy. Thankfully, some of the market watchers have corrected some inaccurate representation on the strength of our economy. That opening in the cloud confirms our confidence in a strategy ahead for the future. 2022 promises to be an exciting and eventful year for our country as we seek to build on our collective successes and promote stability and equal opportunities for all of us. Let us as a nation gird our loins as trees of righteousness, and the Lord will guide us to also bring the wealth of nations to ensure prosperity for all of us. For us as a government and the Ministry of Finance, we remain unwavering in our commitment to build a sustainable entrepreneurial nation and growth-inclusive strategy of social justice and social mobility, to promote investments, manage a sustainable debt program, build our infrastructure, especially roads, and create jobs for our youth. We, guided by the President, went ahead of most nations in initiating a transformation program in the heat of the pandemic. This is the Ghana Cares program or Batampa program. This year, we have set out our plan in the 2022 budget to implement a coherent and comprehensive strategy that delivers extended opportunities for all Ghanaians through 4 distinct and essential components: increased resource mobilization, prudent expenditure management to ensure fiscal consolidation, job creation through industrialization, agriculture, and a regional hub strategy on the back of AFCFTA. And, as you know, the Youth Start program to ensure skills training and access to capital for our youth. These 4 policy focus areas taken together go to the heart of accelerating our efforts at fiscal consolidation, promoting growth, and strengthening our medium-term prospects and debt sustainability in tackling the behemoth of unemployment, especially among our youth. Last year, together we made a lot of progress in our recovery effort after the devastating impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on our economy. Our GDP grew at a provisional 5.2% in the first 3 quarters of 21. In fact, it was over 6% in the 3rd quarter of last year. And we continue to focus on improving the lives of our people. This compares to IMF estimates of 3.7% for Sub-Saharan Africa and 3.6% for ECOWAS. Growth, as you know, is a leading indicator of where the transformation will come from and its effect on the economy. At the end of 2021, we had exceeded our domestic tax revenue target for 2021 by 0.5%, according to the GRA, and are well on course to exceed our GDP growth of 5% for 2021 as well. Sustained financing for government flagship programs continue, resulting in some 1.26 million people benefiting from free HSS, 3.45 million pupils covered by school feeding, 100,000 young persons employed under NAPCO, 344,000 households being given a lifeline under the LEAP program, amongst others, and continue to be funded. Ladies and gentlemen, the rapid post-pandemic rebound is as a result of the economic turnaround program and the solid foundation we built between 2017 and 2019, marked by an annual average of 7% economic growth rate between 2017 and 2019 from the 3.4% inherited in 2016, containing the fiscal deficit below 5% of GDP for 3 consecutive years, restructuring the banking sector by spending over $21.6 billion to protect the savings of 4.6 million depositors and 81,700 investors, reducing inflation rate from 15.4% December 2016 to 7.6%, estimated at 12.2% in November 2021, which is attributable to pressures on global supply chain due to the COVID pandemic. However, by end April 2020, the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic disrupted our progress. The cost of saving the lives and livelihoods of Ghanaians during the pandemic has been enormous, with revenues drastically reduced by 13.4 billion and unplanned COVID-related expenditures rising by 11.8 billion. Public finances were naturally stretched. In fact, our management of the COVID-19 pandemic has received worldwide acclaim, and these expenditures may account for the relatively low mortality rates, total deaths in Ghana of some 1,350, unfortunately, out of the 235,000 2010 for Africa as of yesterday, 18th January. We had to mobilize additional resources, which included borrowing. This compounded our already stretched finances from having had to undertake the financial sector cleanup, payments to IPP fuel suppliers, and energy sector state-owned enterprises of some 26.4 billion as of November 2021. To mitigate the impact of the COVID pandemic, government immediately at that time recruited over 24,000 health professionals, provided some 3.6 million reusable face masks, 50,000 medical scrubs, 90,000 hospital gowns. We rolled out the 750 million CAP bus program in May 2020 to directly support micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises to over 302,000 micro, small, medium enterprises, and to create and save some 768,000 jobs. We provided cooked meals to some 2.7 million vulnerable persons and worked with faith-based organizations to distribute dry food packages to 470,000 families. Supported households, all of us, about 4.8 million of us, with water, and 10.2 million urban dwellers alone, subsidies for all Ghanaians. We spent 1.9 billion to ensure that our children and teaching staff at all levels return to school safely and save the year for them as we were able to sit for their BEC and WACC exams with historic results. We did all these while still protecting and paying for the flagship programs, including free SHS, NAPCO, nurses and teacher training allowances, 1D, 1F, planting for food and jobs, road infrastructure, and railway development, amongst others. We will continue 2022 and beyond with our recovery efforts from this pandemic, with a growth target of 5.3% anchored around our 100 billion Ghana Cares Obatampa program. We remain unwavering in our commitment to ensure that the standard of living of our citizens improve. This year, We have outlined in the 2022 budget our plan and strategy to deliver opportunities for all Ghanaians in creating an entrepreneurial nation. The 2022 budget enables us to stabilize the economy and address the greatest challenges of our time, that is the triple helix of debt, digital and physical infrastructure deficit, especially roads, and unemployment. Indeed, the indignity of our youth sitting at home unemployed must be eradicated. Youth unemployment is not a statistic, it's the real lives of Ghanaians like you and I, and no one should hide his or her head in the sand about this. Ladies and gentlemen, with that background, let me share with you why we need the e-levy, which is one of the key tax measures of our 2022 budget, and why it is important to our lives as Ghanaians in achieving our aim of moving beyond aid. Our revenue to GDP ratio has languished between 11.3% in 2016 to 12.5% in 2021, compared to 16% to 20% of our neighbors. Also, our VAT penetration revenue at 11% to 13%, compared to 18 to 44% of our peers. Clearly, this is an unsustainable way to anchor the extensive transformation agenda articulated in our Ghana Cares Over Tampa program. This is further compounded by the fact that out of the total population of 30.8 million, only about 2.4 million people pay personal income taxes. The question is, what is the most efficient way to bring all Ghanaians into the tax net to build a Ghana beyond aid that we and our children and grandchildren will be proud of? The most efficient way must take into consideration technology and the structural changes in the tax handles. The fact that we have over 40.5 million mobile subscribers and over 17.1 million active mobile money subscribers, it is instructive to note that the total value of transactions on mobile money grew by a compounded average growth rate of 65% between 2016 and 2021, rising from 78.5 billion in 2016 to an estimated 953.2 billion in 2021. Over the past few months, I have made several references to burden sharing. Essentially, we are at a stage in our national development where we must all play our part and put our shoulders to the wheel. Where Greater Accra is responsible for 90% of revenues, it's not the way to burden share. Where some 60,000 professionals, accountants, doctors, lawyers, business people do not pay any direct taxes, it's not the way to go. Where property taxes are laughable, it's not the way to go. Where the wealthy talk about regressive taxes to detract from their own non-payment, it's not the way to go. We simply cannot build forward better with a system where everyone takes and most do not give back. The two major sources of income to pay for expenditure for any government are taxes and borrowing. The balance will tilt one way or the other, depending on the capacity to mobilize revenues. The ability to close loopholes and the willingness for all citizens to be protectors of the public purse and our capacity to prosecute offenders becomes paramount. Unfortunately, we have paid the price for low resource mobilization through insufficient investment. The public sentiment out there is clear. Ghana must collect its taxes to avoid debt accumulation, build our roads, and get our youth to work. So we must collect, we must pay, we must account for it, We must discourage our neighbors from evading taxes, and we must burden share. If we are to do so and still achieve our ambitious, if we do so, we'll achieve our ambitious targets towards rapid development, to expand the economy, to create jobs and prosperity for all. Then the project of burden sharing for shared prosperity must be embraced by all. The consequences relative to our peers: we have invested less in infrastructure. Between 1961 to 2020, Ghana's average gross fixed capital formation ratio was 17%, compared to 25% in sub-Saharan Africa. Moreover, between 2017 and now, our tax to GDP has hovered between 11 to 13%, compared to our peers who were between 16 and 20%. We are paying the price for low resource mobilization through insufficient capital investment. As such, we've had to borrow more than others to finance some of the investment in infrastructure and the provision of social services and security. Our current expenditure pattern is motivated by unwavering support to the sovereign rights of our people, to social justice and social mobility. Between 2017 and 2021, key expenditures have been as follows: education, approximately 50 billion; health, approximately 20 billion; security, approximately 20 billion; other flagships, about 15 billion; and of course, our Agenda 111. In 2016, compensation, interest payments, and statutory funds comprise 141.3% of tax revenues. As at the end of 2021, we estimate that this stood at 146.5% of tax revenues. This reflects the constraints on government's ability to embark on major transformation projects without resorting to borrowing. However, this government, which is a center-right government, has amply demonstrated our commitment to responsible custodianship of resources and the sovereign rights of its citizens. Pre-pandemic, the fiscal deficit declined from 6.5% in 2016 to 4.8% by 2019. Last year, we set a target of 9.4% deficit. As at end November, we were virtually on target. The significance of this must not be lost on us. It means that the finances of our country is not being managed in a rudderless way. It means there's deliberateness, there's care, there's compassion in doing this. It means there's accountability. It means the economy is being managed. This is the true story that we have to tell. Will we go through difficulties? Of course we will. But honestly, show me any government that has done more for social welfare than we have done in this 5 years. We are also on target to exceed our GDP growth target of 4.4% for 2021 based on third quarter statistics, and our domestic revenue target of 57.3 billion for 2021. Our comprehensive agenda to increase mobilization while reducing fiscal slippages is on course through race. Ladies and gentlemen, the e-levy is a necessary tool to increase our tax to GDP from circa 11 to 13% to 16% and above, to guarantee that we'll pay for what we use. The e-levy will not only ensure that we move towards a more sustainable debt level, but will also ensure that we have the revenues to sustainably invest in entrepreneurship, youth employment, cybersecurity, digital and road infrastructure. The e-levy also provides a means for all Ghanaians to help support their country and grow this economy as compliant citizens, giving to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Undeniably, digitalization is eroding the traditional resilience of brick-and-mortar enterprises, with fewer transactions happening across the country. There's an increased risk that some of the standard revenue generation and tax measures will gradually become obsolete. Indeed, except for excise tax duties, the various tax types experienced a marked decline in growth between 2019 and 2020. VAT, for instance, which has traditionally been a significant component of Ghana's tax framework, increased by 3% between 2019 and 2020, compared to 29% between 2018 and 2019. It is clear that government must adopt a revenue mobilization approach befitting the evolving digital age. That the e-levy was born out of a careful study of current trends in this rapidly evolving digital age and is specific on the transactions on which it will be applied. Following the presentation of the budget on November 17th and the discussions that followed, we have had extensive stakeholder engagements, including Parliament, the minority, majority, representatives of FBOs, the banks, Chamber of Telecom, AGI, Civil Society, Chamber of Commerce, and I've had smaller, intimate conversations with citizens across a few constituencies during the Christmas. I was fortunate enough to be able to visit Achim Himai, Yinem, Apapem, and our friend St. George's constituency in Pram Pram, and to just truly listen to what people feel, what people think, and the issues were quite clear to me. I did not, in those deliberations, encounter choleric response to e-levy. The issues were ones of accountability and ability for them to know what their money is going to be used for. The various concerns were heard, and we have found a way to address these concerns without an adverse fiscal impact. True to the spirit of burden sharing, the telcos have agreed to reduce their charges by 0.25%, which in effect, the impact on the 1.75 is reduced. And I think we should be clear on that. Because we then retain the resources we need, but however, ensure that the citizenry is not impacted as highly. So this will reduce the overall impact, net impact of the levy on subscribers. We want to take this opportunity to thank our friends in the telecom industry, and we believe by this measure, we can then raise the requisite resources to bolster our fiscal position while keeping an eye on transaction costs and consumer welfare and reducing the impact on the average Ghanaian and keeping the resources required for our growth agenda. After extensive consultations, the e-levy will be resubmitted to Parliament this month, as the Minister mentioned, from the 25th of this month. We look forward to joining hands with our honorable members of Parliament to approve the e-levy on a consensus basis so that we can collectively address the big issue of unemployment, debt sustainability, and infrastructure build-up, especially roads. I think it is quite clear from the Bloomberg report and from the Fitch downgrade that the consequences of not passing the e-levy is clear to us. There's no question that we must have democracy as we have it, but even as we do, we also have to manage how it is expressed, how we work together as a people with a common goal to go forward. So, for example, our spreads have widened on the international market such that if one were to go to the market, if there was space, you'll be paying about 500 basis points more. So for $1 billion, that would be some $50 million each year. In a 10-year bond, that is $500 million that we additionally have to pay. And so managing our democracy and Parliament is going to be important for us to speak the same language and move in a direction that does not jeopardize or compromise the needs of the Republic. And I'm sure we all can take blame for that, but we'll move forward strongly as one people to be able to get there. Let me be clear today. The e-levy would impact mobile money transfers between accounts on the same electronic money issue, EMIs, mobile money transfers from an account on one EMI to a recipient on another EMI, transfers from bank accounts to mobile money accounts, transfer from mobile money accounts to bank accounts, and bank transfers on a digital platform application which originate from a bank account belonging to an individual to another individual. I emphasize that e-levy will not impact cumulative transfers of Ghana cedis 100 per day made by the same person, transfers between accounts owned by the same person, transfer for the payment of taxes, fees, and charges on the Ghana.gov platform, electronic clearing of checks, specified merchant payments, i.e. payments to commercial establishment registered with GRA for income tax and VAT purposes, and transfers between principal, master agent, and agent's account. Let me warn, though, that if there's a deliberateness and a realization that certain migrations are being done to avoid paying of e-levy, this is again the spirit of burden sharing, and we shall invoke appropriate administrative measures during that period. Beginning tomorrow, a team comprising myself, colleague ministers, and other key members of government would embark on a public engagement and sensitization program across the country planned by the Minister of Information. We intend to communicate clearly on the proposed mechanics of the e-levy, its potential benefits to the people of Ghana within the spirit of burden sharing, and that must guide us in our development efforts as we move Ghana beyond aid. As I've indicated already, we intend to use the money to create jobs and grow our private sector to employ more of our youth, accelerate the digitalization agenda to bring more convenience to Ghanaians, enhance the security of our digital platforms, aggressively expand our road infrastructure agenda, reduce our dependence on debt, and reduce the crowding out of the private sector to improve access to credit. Ladies and gentlemen, a strong recovery needs a clear plan for the future. Initiatives such as the e-levy showcases our determination to build a stronger future our country deserves. Contrary to other assessments, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to stress that this economy will continue to get stronger. The concerns of our citizens, rating agencies, are all linked on our revenue mobilization capacity, lack of access to international markets, and our e-levy impasse. We shall overcome these. Similar to most economies, we are emerging from the devastating impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. In spite of this, we do not face any imminent external imbalance. We have over 5 months in for cover, which is well above our internal target of 4 months and better than the average over the previous 2 decades. Although the current debt to GDP ratio as at the end of November 2021 is 78.4%, it reveals a reduction in the rate of debt accumulation, i.e. declined by 34% in 2020 to 18% as of November 2021. Suffice it to say that Bloomberg updated their publication that wrongly reported Ghana's debt to GDP ratio at 81.5% to reflect the correct figure as above. We are confident that all others would also realize the strength inherent in our economy, our determination as a government to implement our Obatampa program, and the need, therefore, for all of us to speak the same language to be able to move forward. We project to achieve a positive primary balance target to improve stability and reduction in the debt to GDP ratio in 2022 and through the medium term. In fact, restoring fiscal discipline and putting the public debt on a sustainable downward trajectory is a priority for government to achieve fiscal consolidation. Based on these outturns and informed projections, we start this year with renewed confidence. The government has largely met its set for itself in the past, met the targets it set for itself in the past. Stable growth, average of 5.3% between 2017 and 2020. Controlled inflation, average of 9.88% between 2017 and 2020. And a more stable currency, average depreciation of 7.5% between 2017 and 2020, and estimated 4.1% in 2021. These have been the hallmarks of our administration compared to an average GDP growth of 3.94%, average inflation of 15.9%, and average currency depreciation of 17.78% for the previous administration. We contend that we remain better managers of the economy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are also strengthening expenditure management in 2022 and beyond to ensure that we match all expenditures to revenue inflows. All expenditure commitments in 2020 will be adjusted to match revenue collection. Therefore, in accordance with Section 20 of the Public Financial Management Act, the quarterly expenditure ceilings of the approved budget will include up to a 20% downward adjustment beginning in the first quarter of 2022 in commitments across board for all covered entities benefiting from the 2022 budget, subject to revenue performance. This means that our fiscal consolidation addenda is not going to be only revenue-led, but also expenditure-focused. In addition to the e-levy, we are committed to the implementation of other revenue measures, including the exemption bill, property taxes, internally generated funds, etc. I look forward to further engaging with you all in the coming days and sharing government's vision for creating a country where ingenuity is encouraged, where innovation is supported, where public service is valued, where responsibility and burden sharing is for all of us and prosperity will be shared. Accountability for the custodianship of public resources would also be prioritized. We have, in the spirit of burden sharing and consultations, as I mentioned, gotten 25% off the fees of the commercial operators. This is in good faith, so let us keep 1.75% to build our country. The opportunity to build a resilient, more dynamic and prosperous society lies ahead of us. We must all seize the moment to build forward better and a wealthier society. Genesis 11:5 and 6 says, "But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the people were building. And the Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them." Let us speak the same language for the Republic. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. God bless our country.